Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Impossible World podcast. My name is Grin, I am your host, and of course, this series' main objective is to stoke the fires of creation and give you guys a world to play in. But of course, we are going to be continuing until I get to points where we can really build out this world and all of that stuff. But your boy made some mistakes and has been making a lot of mistakes as of late when it comes to the story. And a part of me does want to just do this in editing, like just not have me here talking to you guys and shooting the shit. Because in editing, I find I can do a lot better of a job because I can stop and think about what I would like the character to say and reasons for why he would say those said things. But alas, that goes against the whole podcast nature. But also, it's just me here. It's just me in my brain telling myself stories I've heard 1,000 times, because I've told them to myself 1,000 times. And like enjoying these certain mechanics, so I try to memorize them. So then, like, oftentimes I'll be editing the video. I know you're not supposed to edit podcasts, but lo and behold, that's just me. I remember thinking back and thinking, oh right, I wanted to add this in there. Shit, I forgot about it. So, for clarity and levity's sake, I have taken upon myself to write down bullet points for, of course, the thing we're going to be talking about today, which is our main character getting, getting his necromancer, or his lich, which, by the way, I'm not trying to be this asshole about it, who is just like, oh, I really like the werewolf, so that's all we're going to talk about. No, there's a reason why, and we'll get to it in this part, hopefully, if there's enough time, to talk about why the necromancer / lich, it's a lich, I just say necromancer because that kind of bleeds into where our character's affinity will go, but anyways, why he's not using it, and why he has struggle using it. But anyways, before we get into that, before we jump off into that direction, I actually did want to do some busy work, which we will get to comments and having. I released the first episode of the podcast, and I wish I would have released more, but I couldn't help myself. Again, I love the series so much that I'm just like staying on top of making these videos because I want the ideas and my excitement to kind of translate through you guys as well. Anyways, we will be reading comments from that first video. I don't know if anyone's gone as hard into explaining what they would become or anything like that, but you guys were immensely kind and supportive of the series, so that makes me super, super happy and warms my heart. The second thing is, there's been plenty of times when I've been telling these stories that I really, really, really want to go back and add something. So for instance, one of the things is I want to shine light more on passive abilities. So you know how in the very beginning when I first introduced Crowley to you guys, how he became this thing, he left the room that was all going to shit, and then he went to the bathroom and he came out. And when he came out, there's this thing that just shot across the hallway, fast as shit, didn't see what it was, and knocked him on his ass. And threw him back, and he had this cut on his face. And he wiped away this blood that was on his face because of the cut, and the cut was no more. So this, to me, kind of introduced passive healing for Crowley. But I also wanted to, if I was writing a novel, I would, as soon as they get the relic, I would let the speak through the mind of the main character, or the character that's holding that relic at the time, and go over it says that I have this, and go through that. But for the time being, I kind of want to unveil those as we go through the series. So we're not just and here's a whole episode about stats and buffs and side traits that I think would be useful because those traits only exist because of story beats that we could hit later on. It's not just hey, he can heal for no reason, or the reason why I have Crowley basically so he couldn't heal fully. So Crowley can only attain a certain amount of healing before he has the fatal wound that will affect him. He can't heal through that. But our main character does have this regen. So to me, whatever point I would like to insert it, I would like to insert it at some point. And I would have preferred it to be in the start. So again, it could have been when our main character was with Crowley in the house, getting Crowley's ring, or when we're going to get our wolf. Let's say when we want to go get our wolf relic, that our necklace that just describes what our passives are. Just to kind of give light. Yeah, we could do two things here. We could give light to our main character being an insane person, and also showing the wolf's regen. So say Crowley wasn't looking, and then this root monster comes and goes up to slash him. But our main character just instinctively, boom, jumps right on top of him and gets smashed right in the chest. And let's say, yeah, sure, there's this cut, blood, and boom. And Crowley's like, oh shit. And our main character reaches forward, grabs this root monster's mouth. Because again, if I could give you any sort of example of what they look like in my head, it's the things from Skyrim, which are these like elven, beautiful looking like monsters made of tree bark and root, and like this glowing essence to their eyes, showing that they're alive. A spark in their soul or something. But anyways, I see our main character like killing them in some way. Brutal as I would like it, he grabs the root monster's jaw and rips it off downwards, and then it falls down. As he holds his stomach, and he progresses, and he walks forward because maybe there's some more enemies off in the distance, and he's kind of focused on combat. And Crowley's like, wait, should we retreat? Should we do something? No, I think I'll be fine. Yeah, every werewolf has passive regen in any mythos, so I assume that was correct. And he progresses forward, and I would love for Crowley to basically be like, what? Like, you didn't know, but you just not only tanked a shot, and you were just okay with this? Like, you didn't know you could heal through it. You just thought, yeah, that makes sense. Boom. So you accepted your broken logic, and are focused on combat. And who knows, we could maybe use this as an element for why Crowley doesn't run off when he has the opportunity to, when our wolf boy goes into the black tar pit and comes spiking out after he's gotten his relic. So, but yeah, stuff like that. I would like to, I like in editing, I was like, shit, I remember this, but I don't know where to fit it, and I would like to just convey that to you here. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, is there anything else that I wanted to wrap up? No, I kind of just would like to say that, again, believe it or not, there are reasons why things are the way they are. So, again, yeah, like there were certain things that I felt like, damn, I could have done a better job about. But then there are other things that, like, I'm worried that some people will be like, oh, why haven't you talked about the power scaling of this? And it's like, well, because it's not relevant yet. It's like if I was writing a book, I would want the reader to kind of discover this stuff alongside the main characters. And even maybe to some extent withhold some information from the reader, so that there is that moment of like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming, and then boom, our main characters pull themselves out of the fire, so to speak. But just because I want to actually give some credence to the people who are lovely enough to listen to me ramble for such a long time, but then we will be getting to the Lich Necromancer arc, I guess you'd call it, and going into all that, which is honestly, yeah, I've given. Well, we'll get into it, but hopefully it'll make sense and be funny and enjoyable and make sense. Okay, there's a spider saying, Grim, nasty, there's a spider on my wall. Me, Grin, wait. Grin hits me with a shoe. I did not. I always put on a sock on my hand, and then I squash it with the sock as to not, let it like run away. Also to make sure that I get it. And yeah. Dalian says, sounds pretty awesome, thank you. Can't wait for the next one. I definitely already have a character in mind. Do you want to make a Discord channel or something where people can throw their ideas out? That could be cool. I'm Carthage, by the way. They don't know my name. Display. Okay, I see. So yeah, this is Carthage. Okay, hey Carthage. Lovely gentleman, helps me with video games and plays with me on stream and all these things. But I kind of would like to. I don't know. The reason why I wouldn't want to anchor it to the Discord is because I would like to anchor it to the YouTube comments. That way people who are watching can take inspiration from your thing, because this is kind of supposed to be this melting pot of ideas. So yeah, I don't know. To me, I would, in my opinion, I'd prefer if you guys did have any ideas that would anchor them to, of course, the comments, just so that people could see that and be inspired by it. But I also understand that it's storytelling is one of those weird things, because you're putting yourself out there, and at certain points, you could feel like you're not a writer or anything like that, but you have this cool idea, but you're also worried that people will think it's shitty, because maybe you have people in your life that you've told this to and they just deadpan face and they don't look at you like, oh, okay, and then they proceed without anything else, and it destroys your confidence for this cool idea, so you just share it with yourself. So it is hard to put yourself out there. Believe you me, this is not easy. A lot of the times when I'm listening to myself ramble, I'm like, dude, stop going so quick. Be a better like representation for your thing. Take a minute to explain the environment. Like I have no shortage of lists of lists of criticisms for myself. Breathe me, slow it down. Yeah, I'm pretty good at criticizing myself in that manner. So I understand that idea, but again, throwing in my 2 cents, I would love to for this to be a community thing, you know. But yes. Beastie says, "Oh my God, it's just what I've always wanted." Oh, thank you, Beastie. That's awesome. Catman the Badass says, "Loved. Please do more." I will. We don't have too many ideas yet because at this point, when you guys are seeing part 5, I've only uploaded part 1. So yes, you guys have a sprinkle of the rules, but nothing quite so crazy yet. But yes. So I throw that out there. I do want to make that a point, but again, I will be reacting to your guys' comments way later on, just to let you guys know. Just because again, I would like to reward anyone who takes the time to, of course, participate in this crazy idea that I have. And when I say I want you guys to know that there's a spike that hits me in the side of the head that's like, idiot, I'm sure someone's had this idea already, and it's a thing, and they did it better than you. So I just want you guys to know that when I say that, I don't mean that. I am just trying to be like, hey, love you. Is there anything that I want to kind of go over there that is important? So one of the things, I guess, is that, again, the werewolf is very much, clearly present throughout all of this, to an effect where he's basically hovering over the main character, and he's a willing participant in what's going on. But we haven't heard much from this necromancer thing at all. At best, we have skills that we could attain, but ultimately that's it. And even Crowley is experiencing things like the traits of the demon kind of thing come out. You know, him having less fear, him feeling more confident as he sees victory. Because sure, we could even say that's like a passive trait within demons. The more victory you feel, the more confidence you feel about victory. You know, you don't hesitate. You have these emotions, these passive kind of abilities that kind of really cater demons to being these conquest heavy monsters. But yes, these come out every Saturday. So for the people that don't remember what happened, basically, Crowley went through a trial, and again, I prefer the version where he was confident and badass in his own way, and being a trickster and being clever and being tactician and all these kinds of things. Anyways, they progress, and they of course pick up this relic for Crowley, and this relic is essential to Crowley's build in the slightest. Again, reason why that's the case, that this weapon is so essential to Crowley, is because if Crowley didn't meet the main character and find this, he would kind of just be some Joe Schmo that never really popped off. But because they find strength within each other, they're able to get stronger and stronger. But of course, this relic that Crowley found was this badass cane that it has a red orb in the middle with all these hands kind of fighting over this red orb. And this cane breaks down material and stores it. So let's say this thing acts as Crowley unlocking basically his inventory, but also unlocks him being able to basically atomize any resource. It could be a car, it could be a mailbox, it could be a house. Points this cane at it, and it chews through everything as if it was a giant orb. But every time he uses this, it does eat away at his magic, but that's kind of good because Crowley doesn't have any kind of abilities that really play off of magic. Degradation, I guess, anything that eats away at magic. So this is great for him, and also kind of pushes Crowley towards weapons that he'll make for himself and the main character, or weapons that consume mana in order to have an edge. And I kind of wanted to paint the picture of Crowley just going to town, just being like a glutton for just chewing through things. And of course, to kind of counterset that, Crowley passes, or almost passes out, faints, comes to, and he's like, oh shit, is this what feeling anemic is like, or feeling like what happens when you bottom out for magic, or your mana? And that's something that we could play with, as well as I thought it would be nice to add some sort of kind of dialogue between our characters, like a goofy kind of passive thing where Crowley says, is this what you feel like when you bottom out for magic? You feel anemic, sick, feel lightheaded, and the main character's like, oh no, I just feel like I want to burst out of my skin, and every atom in my body just, is ripping me apart. so not the same feeling. And then they go, and he's like, oh, okay, Jesus. So they're different beasts in that sense. But like I said, I also want Crowley to get a gun at this point, because at this point Crowley's broken down a couple things. He's got, let's say, gunpowder, let's say special kinds of steel, and all these things. Again, if that doesn't make sense, we could say that the cane has a chance of giving you a random resource every time you break something down, although I would like that to be something later in the skill tree, or a skill, so that our main character could touch on it later. Not making sense, but anyways. So anyways, Crowley at this point has a slew of materials to actually play with. And let's say he's driving around kind of fiddling with his ring, his inventory. But also let's say that this plays as a fact of, again, the character from Good Omens, one of the traits he has is that he's a reckless driver, and that anyone who's in the passenger side of when he's driving is hopeful that they'll live, because he's just an insane driver, doesn't pay attention. So it makes sense that this character is also just like driving while just completely not focusing on the road. On a side note, Crowley in the series like is the best driver though. Like he's a terrible driver, but he never has gotten in a crash. He's never died. He's like the best driver in the worst way. If that makes any sense. So sure, let's say that. But anyways, the point that we need to get to is I would like Crowley to have this double barrel shotgun. And of course, last time that's where we left off, is where Crowley basically attains a shotgun, is like, okay, like finally, now I have a weapon that can punch back instead of just being kind of helpless to the sides. And oh boy, he does. But again, the one thing that's limiting Crowley is that he still needs enough experience to where he can unlock blueprints that where he can really start going to town and crafting things. And let's say he's almost there. You know, with him having discovered the ability to make a shotgun, he's getting closer to making something really, really cool, or just making better stuff. Anyways, so one of the things I wanted to passively talk about with this trial is it's kind of very simple. They arrive at this graveyard, and say let's just say our main character's sitting there, and he's like, go right, go left. Okay, now go right again, and eventually they find themselves towards these giant steel gates, and they find themselves at a cemetery. So of course, it's kind of like, of course, Grin, you did a cemetery, but it matters. It does play into what's gonna happen to a certain degree. Anyway, so yes, they arrive at a cemetery. Oh, also, one of the things I wanted to nip in the butt, and this is something I wanted to do before we even got into talking about the arc, but we need, and begrudgingly, we need a name for our main character, and, well, Crowley, I think I'm at this point, I've just hammered home Crowley so much that you guys get it. That's the name, unfortunately, for him. But we haven't come up with a name for the main character. At this point, it's getting cringy, where I'm just like, the werewolf dude, the guy who is our main character. Like, I just keep doing that. So I said randomly that Grin would be a good name, but it still feels weird. It's like Grin is me. That's the channel, but that is me online. So it feels weird saying it that way. As well as, again, I told you guys in the past that I like, this character is not me. This character is what I need him to be in the situations that I think are interesting. So that's what he is, but also staying to those things that he is. You know, this enigma, being kind, trying to piece people back together. But also having the weirdest setup for those traits. Because again, I want him to be kind of an enigma within his kit as well. Anyways, so to me, I was thinking, okay, well, I need to come up with a name that represents this character. So what would be a name that would do it? And to me, I thought it would be kind of hilarious for this couple who is just kind of normal and average, gives their first child the name of Grim. So similar to like the Grim Reaper, except it's Grim spelled with 2 M's, because I just like that idea, make it slightly different. So his name is Grim. I like that. Also, it plays again with that idea of an enigma. What is it called? I don't think it's called an enigma. It's called so his name is Grim, which could be seen as very sad and quiet and gloomy, but he's very the opposite of that. He's pretty upbeat, joyful, and happy. So he's the opposite, or he's the inverse. That's the word I'm looking for. He's the inverse of what his name is. So not only is he cheerful and happy, but he is very, very much into monsters, which to me, I think of Grim as being this. I associate Grim with Grim Reaper, so I associate it with like this dark kind of awesome. Honestly, I don't know why. I just think that Grim Reaper is a cool character, and that may be another story I have about like the next Grim Reaper. But anyway, we're not there yet. We're still doing this story. So I thought that'd be our main character's name, Grim and Crowley. Yeah, just thought, why not? Also, it's somewhat close to my name, so I can somewhat predispose myself onto the character. Anyways, moving on. So that's our main character's name. So him and Grim come to a stop, and they make their way out of the car. And as soon as Grim, our main character, steps out of the car, he feels different. He feels this entire different wave hit him, and he looks at Crowley and he says, I don't think we should be here. I don't think we should go into this one. It feels way different than the one we went on, like the wolf. It feels strong. And sure, let's say Crowley's like just seen victory, and not only that, but he has this tool now, and not only that, but this tool enabled him to have this weapon that he thinks is pretty deadly, which it is. But our main character is feeling this unbelievable kind of power coming out of this trial. So he's looking at Crowley and he's like, it's not like the other ones we've done. This is different. Like this is like battle. This isn't like something that we can talk. This is just gonna be fighting. And then Crowley's like, well, good that I just made this gun then. Crowley's very much like, let's get it, let's fucking do it. He's got this perceived confidence, which is somewhat earned for considering they've been, seeing victory, even though they've been seeing many challenges through seeing victory. So it's kind of earned confidence to a degree. By the way, coffee cup of the sitting, you can't see it. It's just this bright nonsense. All right, well. Also, just a side thing, if anyone sees my hands and are like, what's going on, Grin? What's with that? Just born that way, missing bones in my fingers. Good times. Some would say the things we're dealing with in this story very much reflect my my own personal feelings on accepting yourself and moving forward. Anyways. So yes, again, Crowley eggs him on to say, okay, come on, Grim, we got this. Just let's move forward. I got this shotgun, you got your power, we can do this. And let's say they took enough time, like a 10-minute drive to where a character could reset, Wolf settled back down, and now he's revving to go. Grim takes a breath and says, okay, we can at least try. I can see the harm in us, leaving, right? Grim takes a breath, turns around, and sees this giant gate. And it's kind of like, again, it's a cemetery, but it's not a light cemetery, it's a heavy-duty cemetery with these catacomb-level things, like these giant kind of concrete buildings. I'm sure you guys have seen them to some extent. It's a heavy-duty cemetery. It's giant. Almost like, how did this get here kind of thing. The demigod, obviously. Anyways, so they take a deep breath, and sure, let's say Crowley comes up beside him, puts his hand on his shoulder and says, we got this, and then puts the shotgun over his shoulder and says, and takes a few steps before he does. And again, I really want to imply that this is he knows that there's something up happening here. And let's say that our main character really our main character is raw to the bone, whereas Crowley has things like confidence, preconceived confidence, and all these things, which our main character doesn't have. So he just feels that, whereas Crowley would say the tree also felt pretty strong. Crowley's like, yeah, but I got this, we've won all up to this point. Of course, we're gonna win now. But our main character has none of that. He has no ego. He just is like, fuck, this is not something that's the same, Anyways. So they start making their way into this cemetery. Fog is building, it's the night sky, and the moon is ignited, the entire cemetery in this white kind of glow. And they start progressing. And let's say with the addition of them being both a demon and a werewolf, they have better eyesight in the darkness, so they're fine. They can see things quite clearly. But the mood is set, there's whistling flying through the bushes, as well as the iron gates surrounding the entire cemetery. So anyways, our main characters are, of course, moving their way through the encounter, all the while looking behind them because this is just a creep show. But our main character feels a sense of calm, but he's still looking behind him for fear of attack, but not for fear of being creeped out, because this isn't home to him. This is serenity, this graveyard. So anyways, as they're progressing, Crowley goes to speak up and says, I don't know, never mind. Never mind, just... let's go. And basically he was about to be like, wow, this is we've done really good, there's nothing here kind of thing. But of course I would like Crowley to have learned his lesson last time and be like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I won't be the one that triggers this shit. So anyways, because of that reason, they make it deep in, let's say it's a big cemetery, they make it to probably the middle point. And at this point, to paint you more pictures, again, there's a bunch of these, it's very cluttered. Yeah, there's tombstones on the ground, there's fences quarantining certain parts of the location, and there's also, as well as there's those concrete kind of giant, house, kind of like sheds that are holding bodies. There's also some of these really, really nice tombstones that almost look like caskets. That are just in the open air, kind of probably a little bit higher than a normal tombstone, except they're a casket. And they're sprinkled out all over the place, kind of making pathways with that. So anyways, our main character is progressing, and our main character just keeps fumbling about, trying to find where this is coming, trying to listen for where he should go, but nothing. Unlike the other one where it's right here. Keep moving forward, you'll find it. And then our main character found his wolf his tooth or whatever, necklace, skill tree or whatever. This time nothing. It's just quiet silence. He doesn't even know which way to go, so it ends up having them kind of stumble about for a while. Anyways, eventually Crowley points something out, and he's like, "Oh, there's this green hue coming from over there." And as they take a step onto this certain path, boom. And maybe we could do something more crazy, again, that could just be Crowley's weirdo gag where he just says something and then shit hits the fan. Despite he's a tactician, he's playing with the arrogance of a demon kind of thing. So of course, boom, he, regardless, a hand bursting out of the grass, starting to make its way out of its grave. A catacomb door pops open. A person starts to hobble out of there. They be zombies everywhere, in all manner of things. They're appearing, many. Whereas the root people were kind of like, they drop down, they face you, they drop down, they face you. There is just this, like, hundreds of them coming at you. And our main characters are like, okay, like, not only is this more than anything we've ever fought before, but okay, like, let's try to handle this. So of course, Crowley's like, perfect, I've been wanting to test this weapon I got. So points the shotgun right at one of their heads, boom, pulls the trigger, and then their head just clean gets taken right off. Let's get a little bit more insane, because Crowley was a demon that is finally crafted a weapon that's pretty strong. Let's say like the human body is like this. Let's say there's like this big, like not just takes off his head, but takes off the whole chunk of like a giant circle around his whole body. So a little bit of his chest just gets completely taken right off. And then it drops right down, and then he shoots again, and then he has to reload. Which, let's just say he has some, a couple shell or a belt on his side that has shells that keeps replenishing. Let's just say that. It's weird. Every time he takes one out, there's more that spawn there. Cool. Anyways, put some shells in, but in his meantime of him putting those shells in, our main character jumps and starts fighting as well. And let's say, yeah, some of them have these weapons. Some of them have like a crooked blade or a busted blade, or just these old relics that maybe they were using when they died, or that they were buried with. So anyways, they go to slice Crowley, and again, I want to kind of get at the idea of our main character having this instinct to attain a weapon and burn it, like try to use it really quick, to a fault almost. So anyways, let's say that Crowley is shooting, and he's emptied his magazine, like I said, and at this point he's just reloaded. And let's say Crowley doesn't have that much battle experience, so he says, okay, I'm just going to reload right here without really paying attention. But anyways, one of the zombies pull up, and our main character, let's say, I don't know, let's change it up a little bit. Let's say he lunges down, pushes his claws right into one of their thighs, and it just crumbles, basically. Like, it just falls apart because it's decayed. And then he shifts momentum and uppercuts his claw right upwards and takes off his whole front of his face, let's just say. His brain's exposed as he, like, flumps back over. So these aren't, like undead that can't be affected. They're just, like, just horde and, like vigorous in their pursuit. As they're fighting them off, they start to back up, and they realize very soon, after they're done, taking a few of them out, that they just keep coming. So then Crowley's like, I see what you were meaning by this. Like, I don't think they stop. Like, unlike the other ones that as soon as you took down like the big badass, that was it. This is different. This is like an onslaught, a endless wave of hell coming for you. So anyways, now we're going to do our perception thing. So let's say that that's what happened. So they're getting pushed back. And then let's say one of them just got really, really close and just lunged at Crowley. And our boy was maybe, yeah, let's say that. He almost got hit, so he had to dodge. Anyways, they get separated. So like one of them hits, lunges, and then there's two diverting paths. So Crowley jumps to the left, our main character jumps to the right, and boom. And now they're kind of backpedaling as this horde is like keeps pursuing them. And sure, let's say Crowley just says, just find the relic and then we'll leave, or we'll do something, or figure it out. Just find it. Let's say he says, we'll find it and we'll leave. So at this point, they kind of take their mind away from the zombies, realizing that they're just this endless source. And then they start like running. And yeah, let's say this. Let's just kind of accelerate. I need our main characters just to find it. So again, if I was writing a story, I would find little things for them to do in the meantime. Maybe Crowley says fuck it, and he uses his smarts and climbs up on top of this one of those giant tombstones and looks, and he's like, I see this light, it's over there, go head that way, it's by your side. And then maybe he turns and shoots, and he's kind of playing the role of like, okay, well, I'll try to slow them down and cover you while you try to get it. Cool, because by the way, you couldn't touch it. Maybe we should foreshadow that in some way, where like a main character goes to reach for something and it zaps him, like this demonic thing. Like, it's like, no, you can't use what's not yours, what's not your monster's affinity. Anyways, so of course our main character proceeds trying to rush towards this light. And okay, again, just first glance, what I see is, so say it's a cemetery and there's a forking path. So he's going straight and there's two forking, but in between that forking path is this fence that is the back, this raised platform with a couple steps leading up towards it, but it is this super menacing looking undead thing, wrapping his hand around the throat of this mummy-looking thing. It's like this mummy-looking thing is the best way I could describe it. So he's holding this thing there, and as he sees it, he starts to hear those voices. Same thing he heard when he picked up his relic for the first time, except this time they're loud again. They're these ravenous whispers to yelling to this fury he's feeling coming off this thing. And as he starts making his way closer and closer to it, of course, the sound keeps building. And sure, let's add that element. So he has these screaming whispers in his mind. Thinks he's going crazy, but then he also hears his heartbeat. And his heartbeat go ba-boom, ba-boom. As soon as he starts hearing it, he hears it go louder and louder and louder. And then as he starts getting closer and closer and closer, he hears it go da-doom, da-doom, da-doom. And it's getting slower and slower and slower. And as he gets pretty close to it, as he starts to make his way up to the first footstep, he drops to the ground, hand over heart, terror in his eyes, feeling himself start to lose the living part of himself. And it's a horrible feeling. And maybe let's say Crowley sees him on the ground. Crowley says, "Are you good, man? What's going on?" Anything could be something more. Could be something more Crowley, and be like, What the fuck are you doing? Get it! Grab it! You're crazy? I can't hold them off forever, this kind of thing. So yeah, our main character is feeling sick and just terror, dread. And as he looks up to try to climb, he sees the statue that was holding this mummy-looking thing by the throat. His eyes are now piercing right down at our main character. Still statue, but just odd, and the main character's like, fuck, like shit, this is creepy. And yeah, let's say that the instead of just looking like menacing, as soon as he kind of falls back as he sees that the statue's looking at him, the statue, he basically lands on his ass and his head jolts, and then he sees the face again, and the face looks disgusted, like just vile, like repugnant, like this old, like withered looking like undead is like looking down on him with such disrespect, like ugh, like what? All right, now let's take a minute to explain what's going on in our main character's head. So at this point, he's terrified of dying. It's like a similar beast to what happened with his werewolf. But like, what the heck do I do? I'm scared. I'm afraid. And I feel like I shouldn't be. But I am, again, he thinks the world of monsters, but without being like, he knows they're bad sometimes, but he likes to hope that they're good, and he just likes them in general. So anyways, he's feeling these conflicting emotions of like, I'm scared I'm gonna die, because I can feel my heart just slow down and feel more and more cold. Let's say that he's having all these emotions, but as soon as he sees that things look at him with like disgust, like he's pitying him almost, the main character changes his tune, and he gets frustrated, like really, really frustrated. So then he stands up and he takes one step, and then another step, and then a third step, all while like locking eyes with this thing. And he takes a deep breath while still locking eyes with this statue, this undead statue. And then he reaches without breaking eye contact, and then grabs his left hand, and as soon as he makes contact with that, the one I should have mentioned it more, shit. This old undead looking thing looking down at our main character, he's basically holding this mummy thing by the throat. And it's this giant gauntlet with basically 2 fingers removed. And it's covered in this like black metal kind of looking thing all the way up to the elbow. Anyways, so as soon as he touches it, he flies back and cracks into like 3 tombstones and just boom, boom, boom. And sure, we could do this. If I was writing a novel, I would have him come to as if he just heard he just got shell shocked. So in like certain movies when they get like hit by an explosion and flown back, and their ears are ringing and they're kind of coming to, and as everything's coming into focus, he looks down and he sees that there's this thing on his hand, and it feels like it's embedded inside of his hand, like it's one with him, because he can feel through his fingertips, even the ones that have the metal gauntlet on it. And of course, just to describe what I see when I see this gauntlet, it is this black gauntlet with these 2 fingers. I should say describe, because this is a podcast, with your pointer finger, your thumb, and your middle finger exposed, but your pinky and your ring finger, I guess, have this metal thing going down the very center of your hands. Let's say they overlap between 3 knuckles, but not your pointer finger's knuckle, and they climb all the way down your wrist, and across your palm, and all the way up to your elbow. This steel kind of remains. So for what it looks like on our main character is he has 3 bone fingers exposed with this kind of steel gauntlet, which looks like rugged metal, kind of like decayed rugged metal. Like this is not a very clean, shiny weapon, or shiny gauntlet. Anyways, so that's what I see. And of course, right by the wrist, there are these 2 slits on either side. So on below your thumb and on the side of basically where your wrist and your hand meet, there's this 2 slits on either side that start exuding this what do you call it? This green aura, this green glow. And of course, just to let your imagination play with it, there are a lot of these other ornate kind of necromancer lich vibes going on with the gauntlet. Use your imagination. I have it in my head. I could describe every detail in a vicious way, I suppose, but I'd rather not for right now because this would be an endlessly long video and we're already really, really behind. Anyways, so yes, as our main character is coming to, he sees it, he looks at it, back to front, and as he looks at it, he hears 100 whispers, but these whispers feel like they're coming from a certain place. And he makes eye contact with one of the catacombs, one of the walls. And he sees it, and then and this is something for the reader that could see, his eyes quickly flash with this green color. Also, he notices that da-dung, da-dung, that heartbeat. As soon as he got close to the statue and he touched it, boom, he felt shell shocked, and he noticed that his heartbeat, he couldn't hear it anymore. Anyways, so he looks at these catacombs. His eyes flash as soon as those whispers build to a massive peak, and then silence. Just boom. As soon as his eyes flash that green, there's silence. But that silence is ruined by the catacomb wall cracking. And as this concrete catacomb starts to open, there is this giant fucking arm and hand pushing it open. And then what walks out of it is this giant glowing mummy. And again, it's more wrapped. Like to me, the aesthetic that I see is this thing wrapped with a lot of gauze, with very few cracks to show, but those cracks are exuding this beautiful bright green kind of essence. And then another one cracks, and another one cracks, and eventually our main character starts to stand up, and he sees that all 3 of these mummies are starting to come out. 3 or 4, I haven't decided yet. 3 or 4. So he starts to stand up, and he sees that let's say one of them punches their way right out of their crypt. So yeah, they're these cement blocks. They're basically just like caskets. One of those same mummies punches his way straight out and basically climbs out of it. And let's say that one that came out first is really close to him. That's what he was seeing as he looks up and he sees this towering fucking thing. And I want it to be pretty, let's say he's 7 feet, very, very tall. But let's say also pretty slender. At least in the waist, but not in the hands. His arms are giant. His fingers are huge. Sure, his head is tiny, I guess. Let's go with that too. So you have this just weirdly lanky thing just kind of standing there unresponsive. And let's say that as soon as you get your ornaments, you get a pretty good understanding of what's going on. Just like Crowley did. The gist, yeah, let's say that. Crowley gets the bonus of being demon, which let's say they understand things better. But our wolf boy doesn't quite have that. And our main character is kind of shell-shocked looking at this giant behemoth, not sure how to feel about it. And then out from the distance, Crowley says, "Did you get what you need? Anything?" And he peeks over and he sees these 3 fucking giant things. With you looking at your hand and looking at them, then Crowley's like, "Yes, that's awesome! Quickly, use them, do something with them." And then our main character kind of clicks in and he's like, okay, go, and points, and nothing. Not a single thing happens. They don't move an inch. And then Crowley's like, "Come on, man, do something with them." And then of course he maybe a zombie pops up and he's like, coming for it. And then Crowley's like, "Fuck," and has to shoot him and knock him dead. And at this point, Crowley is still the way it's built out. It's kind of like this maze. Where you can see across. So if he wanted to, he could jump. And let's say he does that. He jumps one of the small gates separating the tombs, or the tombstones, and he's just trying to get away from them while he's training them around and shooting them. But because of the placement of our main character, of Grim, he can see what's happening, and he can see very, very quickly that there is this horde coming down one of the areas, and Crowley's backing up, shooting everybody, and he's like, "Fuck!" That horde is gonna be on top of them. And let's say he tries to scream, but he can't because of the roars of the zombies and the gunshots raining everywhere. So the main character understands what this is. Essentially, he just got access to a summon, a very powerful summon early on. But also he got a conduit for this summon. And we'll get to that later on, but right now let's focus on what's happening. So our main character is put against the wall. He's freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. And he sees that this impending death is coming towards Crowley. So he says, okay, go. And he knows that this is his only hope. He can't get over there with the wolf fast enough. He doesn't even know if the wolf can take them out that much because he's already been fighting them. And he just doesn't have that kind of power. Because he can't, unless he wants to fully transform and just eat everything in his path. And maybe, but he doesn't even consider that because he would think he would kill Crowley. Anyways, so at this point he's stuck behind the wall. He doesn't know what the hell to do. So he looks at the mummy and he's like, okay, go, fight. And then Crowley's like, any day, man. Like, he just keeps egging him on because he's, sees what's in front of him, but now it's behind him. So then and again, all the while he's saying these things, his voice is shaking and he's terrified. And he doesn't, and maybe that's because his heart stopped and he no longer feels like super present, or he just feels awed and cold. Tension's building and fear is in the air, and again, over and over and over again, he keeps trying to say, like, go, fight, kill, anything. Like my friend's gonna die. I need you. Go. And he's just stuck in this thing. And let's say that you guys have an understanding of what the layout is. There was this giant cement tomb right in front of him, about like waist height. Let's say a little bit bigger than waist height. It's about at his chest, and it's got these stairs leading up to it. So he's a little bit higher up, which is why you can see what's happening with Crowley now. He's about to get pincered. But anyways, he's peeking over and he keeps trying to say, like, go, fight, anything, please. And nothing's working. And let's say that instead. Let's say instead of the wolf not being able to handle it, let's just say he can't turn on the wolf right now. It's just not happening. He keeps trying and no go. So then our main character takes a deep breath and thinks. And he thinks and he thinks and he thinks. And he's trying to understand why they're not listening to him, what's going on. And he comes up with two things. The first thing that he realizes is that, what were the moments when I felt strong? Like, what gave me strength when I felt weak? And he remembers that in the moment when he was getting Crowley's relic in his first combat experience, he was scared. He was pushed against the wall. But also, when he made his choice to fight, the wolf was there with him. The wolf, every time, when he burst towards that gargoyle, whatever you want to call it, demon gargoyle, he felt that growl in him. So it was almost the wolf nudging him, like saying, go, 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 go. Fight, 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 all those things, like rallying him on. So we understood that as something where, like, he needs to, if he's going to use this, he needs to throw out power. He needs to command it, and not in the way that he's doing. And then thoughts pop into his head, like, why are you afraid? What's going on? All these things. But essentially, he gets to a point where he says, and things are like building, all while he's just sitting there thinking, freaking out. He finally takes a deep breath and says, what is this feeling? What is this I'm feeling right now? And he thinks to himself, this fear that I'm feeling right now happened as soon as I seen that statue. This ominous, like, soulless feeling of, like, feeling like I started to become, like, unhuman. Like, this feeling of feeling dead, like numb. Numb is a good way to put it. That terrified him because he's very, like, joyful, breathes life. So in this moment of fear and confusion, he finally stumbles onto something. And he's like, well, why did I take a step forward if I was that afraid? Like, what happened? Why did I do that? And he stops and thinks, and he remembers that damn statue was looking at him in this way. And he's like, why did that matter? Like, that's stupid. Why am I thinking about this now? Well, this emotion has to be worth something, or else why would I move forward when I was that afraid? And he thinks about this emotion, and to me, this is the apex of all things. The emotion that he felt is selfish. It is not kind. It is just the most human and real thing I can think of that exists in our world. This is my perception of things, of course, but this is the instinct to want to survive. This is the desire to want to live. And specifically feeling like, how dare you think that you can kill me, and that I will just die and roll over and not exist anymore. I want to live and I will fight to live. So with this thing looking down on him, it's the same kind of feeling of, like, you're pathetic, you're nothing, I'll kill you, like, and you won't have a chance. And that pisses the main character off greatly. That pisses off every creature greatly, especially this one. So he's filled with this emotion. He understands that that's what he felt. And then he thinks about it and he thinks, like, that's pretty selfish, you know? I'm not like, I wasn't mad that my friend was gonna die or anything like that. I'm sure I'd be sad about it, but that wasn't why I moved forward in this moment of fear. It's not a heroic feeling. It's a feeling of the want to survive, the need to survive, and the feeling of being insulted when something thinks that it can kill you, that you are just nothing, worthless, that kind of thing. So to me, and this is something powerful to me because it's a trait that I see in everything, whether it be an animal fighting for one final breath. It is, and that to me is the whole rule of nature, is everything in nature has the right to try to live. Maybe they don't accomplish it, but you should still claw at the thing that is life. And that dawns on the main character. That dawns on Grimm. That that is that force. And as he starts to feel that thing of like, I want to live, and these things want to kill me, try to end me, and not only that, but someone who's been with me, that's a part of my pack. And as these emotions started to carry him in this burst of this emotion, our main character stands on top of that same raised casket, stands tall on that casket as he climbs up like a leader and says, while pointing at the beast coming in on Crowley, he says with this powerful, menacing voice, "Rip them to shreds." And as he says this, as he's pointing at near Crowley, his eyes go this ominous green, and he has this ethereal kind of transparent crown floating above his head, like pieces of a crown floating around his head. And as he says this, it became a yell that echoed through the entire keep, the cemetery. And as soon as he said this, every single thing in the keep is silent. Every zombie frozen in place. Everybody, even Crowley, looking at him with wide eyes as he gave this order. And there's utter silence in this cemetery. And as he holds for 2 seconds, eyes still piercing through his enemies, and out of the silence comes, and then boom, a giant cloth-covered fist comes and bulldozes through 3 zombies, and then another, and then one of them drops down onto a bunch and beats them, and maybe one drops right behind Crowley right as he was getting towards the corner, and just sees him fly down, and Crowley peeks over and sees that there's like a horde coming straight for him. Chaos and havoc, them just showing this unreasonable strength, just boom, 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 dead, 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 dead. Now wait, we're not done yet. We're gonna freeze, but I just want to, these things are chewing through them. Okay, so there's a couple things that happen there. Okay, so this is the perfect time to explain what all that was. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Okay, so what happened there, Grin? What the heck? What were you trying to build? This is one of those things I specifically didn't give you guys pillars for what we were trying to execute on because I wanted to kind of unveil it with you. And I hope I didn't do the worst job of it in editing. Please. Hopefully, if I do, I just redo some of it in editing. But anyways, one of the things I want to get at is, unlike the wolf, it was always kind of cognizant and aware, the Lich went into hibernation. It's an undead, so it basically just kind of was in hibernation, sleeping, because it is a very vocal source, just like the werewolf is, just like this kind of thing that pulls him to a certain direction and always kind of has some opinion on something danger-wise. But he was hearing nothing from that whole while, and maybe we want to say that the Lich felt annoyed that he was basically given less. Like the wolf was given most of his body, and all he had was his hands and his feet, or parts of his feet. So it went into hibernation and was waiting, and it was dormant, kind of like, well, fine then, and went to sleep. And almost nothing can awaken an undead, especially a Lich, which, by the way, we'll get to it. Anyways, almost nothing can wake up a Lich. But there is one thing that even can kindle the soul of something so dead. And that is the truest form of nature, that is the want to survive, the want to live. And that to me is the very thing that kindled his wraith, or Lich. And that's the thing that to me I want to really get at is, well, there's a lot of things that happened, and it was a perfect storm of things that happened. One of the things is that, again, his Lich was asleep, dormant, not really participating in any sort of him. So when he screamed out and he felt that surge of emotion of, I want to survive, I want to live, and the Lich was like, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe I can work with this. Maybe we can survive. If you have this will to live, the same as I do, the same as the wolf does, the same as every living thing in the world does, then okay, maybe we can work together, kind of thing. But anyways, the other thing is the prefects, because again, and I mentioned it in the first part, I think I let it like slip out, but our main character on Halloween night dressed up as the Lich King. I don't think it was, I think there's something in World of Warcraft that's that. No, it wasn't that wasn't what I was getting at. It was just like, hey, I want to be a lich, and screw it, I'll be the king, so I'll wear this kind of like bone crown that I crafted out of paper mache or something stupid. Anyways, so he never, let's say he never put that on. That was the last thing he was going to put on before he left, but he turned. But the prefix in his mind was always Lich King. And this also gives me some fun things to play with, where like he has two choices to make: the path of this in his skill tree, and then the path of this in his skill tree, and he can choose that really early on. Anyways, but that's also why those things were not listening to him. Like he was saying, "Go, fight, go kill him," like, and he was, not only was he speaking through the guise of fear, but he needs to speak with belief and intent, which is also why, if you were to like really do the math, it would be really beneficial if Crowley had this power of like, if Crowley had, instead of a demon, instead he had the power of a necromancer or a lich, because Crowley is, if anything, overly confident, and knows and just speaks with command and resolve, which is what these things kind of feed off of. And that's also another reason why the prefects didn't really work. Like, so again, he was stuck there saying go, and nothing happened until he finally stood tall and gave an order like he was a goddamn leader, like a king, talking to his people and saying, go rip them to shreds. And that was the other thing, is that I wanted to kind of, like, that's the feeling you feel when you're pushed against the wall, you know? When, at least the way that I kind of perceive it is, when you want to survive, when you want to live, it's not like, oh, could you please spare me? No, it's like, whatever's trying to kill me should rot, should die, should fucking suffer. Like, how dare you, kind of this motion, this feeling, this thing that fuels and wakes up the Lich. So, and also, I don't want our main character to be that way. I don't want him to be this fucking benevolent, pure person. I want him to be the ugly side of kindness and caring, and embracing the monster as part of yourself, kind of thing. Or not to embrace the monster as part of yourself, but embracing the monster in this story world, but embracing the kindness of who you are on the inside, you know, of like, I embrace this thing that I have, that everyone has their own shitty story about, but I know who I am enough to where I can be that, you know, I can be the bad guy and still know that I did good, and I did right, you know. But anyways, those were all the perfect storm. But also, one of the things I didn't mention is one of the passive traits that the Lich gives him, but he didn't get because he was the Lich wasn't technically like awake and like giving him buffs. Basically was the Lich's scream, which was when he stood up and he screamed at his that these things go and rip them to shreds. He activated this Lich scream, which is a stun, which is why all of the things kind of stopped and looked at him. And the reason why, honestly, what happened was me being like, I want this moment where everything kind of falls into place, and finally our character, who is kind of this timid, quiet person, you know, channels the werewolf, channels Crowley to a certain degree, and gives this vicious order for these things to tear through the things that would want to kill him, kill them for that matter. And for there to just be this silence while everyone kind of just like, what? And if this was a TV show, which is also what I'm kind of thinking in my head, is if this thing were to pan towards our main character and he's standing there with his finger pointing and with maybe his gauntlet glowing with his ethereal green, and his eyes that are usually orange change to this green, and he has his ethereal crown that kind of dissipates after he gives that order, there being this silence that is immediately broken by these boom, 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 and then fucking smashed, which is his that first thing he was talking to, the first one that you couldn't get to move, that just bolts right through everything and just bashes three of them and showcases this visceral power. And Crowley also being like, whoa, like this is that. First of all, like even I got stunned by that. That was a powerful scream, which is the whole Lich King scream, which is why his prefix is just innately stronger. But also, I wanted to have that. To me is such a cool thing within games, the summoner, but like a true summoner, not like Overlord does summoning but not summoning. It's like you the Overlord anime is what I'm getting at, but he basically has these NPCs that are like very like there's so much a character in those NPCs that it's basically like I feel bad whenever they go into battle, because I care about them so much. So I don't want that to be the case. I would like to keep this kind of realm of like you are this force of will that I pulled from nothing. Now, yes, I will take care of you and I will make sure you're okay, but I still want our main character to basically be like annihilate them and have that kind of freedom of will and karma to just let them go nuts without being like, oh, but you'll be safe. I don't want that to be kind of present, so that he can really just unhinge and let these things go fucking straight forward. Oh man, this is gonna be such a long part, man. I'm so sorry. I gotta use the washroom too. I mean, well, maybe that will give me some fire to keep going, to like burn through this a touch. Okay, so that's like one thing that I had where, and that's kind of it explained, is that the Lich was dormant, and then him finding this emotion and finding this ultimate reason for all things being wanting to survive, which is the feeling of wanting to have the right to survive. You may not win, but you should still cling and claw at life. Reawakened even a Lich is undead. So at this point, our main character is standing atop with his finger pointed, undead mummies just flying and bolting, jumps down. Like he's ready to go. And let's say that he jumps down and now he's on a path. And let's say that Crowley breaks off and heads left because there was a gap. So our main character's in the center, like as he jumps down from the raised tomb or whatever. And he's ready to fight. And he sees Crowley kind of break off and run to the left and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, our main character, let's say 3 zombies kind of flump over the kind of raised fence, and now they're on his path. So then he turtles up and he focuses up. And yeah, let's say that he kind of like crunches down into like a boxing stance kind of thing and gets ready and like digs his feet in and looks directly at the things, the 3 zombies coming at him. And as he's in this place, and again, one of the things that I keep touching on is the ability to kind of like slow down time or perceive time differently. The reason why is because I think it's a cool narrative thing. So you can explain, hey, in this moment, here's some clarity, and then boom, it sets it off, and then it all falls into place or it doesn't. Anyways, so in this moment, our character is turtled up. He's eyes piercing with the orange glow that we're used to, and he's still got this gauntlet on, and he goes and he's ready to just fly at them and pounce. But as he's about to do it, there is this ethereal kind of bone hand that puts his hand on his cheek and moves it forward. So he's like this, he's in boxing stance, and this hand comes and adjusts his head to look a little bit left. Hiya, ladies and gentlemen, me here in post and or in editing. I'm going to try to do a better job of this, even though I was doing fine. I just wanted to, this is going to be a long video if I don't wrap this up. So yes, essentially, we're getting at the idea that the Wraith is now intervening and helping our main character. So again, this ethereal hand, the ethereal bone hand, touches his right cheek, pushing it to the left, and he sees, lo and behold, that Crowley is about to be jumped by a very, very bad undead with this kind of dagger. So the dagger rises up. Our main character sees that, and just like a pulse, his eyes flash with this beautiful green, and then quickly go back to the orange that we know and love. But in that flash, time kind of speeds up again, and all 3 of his mummies rip this fucking undead to shreds. They each grab an arm, 2 legs, and they just pull and shred this thing. And Crowley, of course, takes notice of this and starts backing up and reloading and just paying generally more attention of his surroundings. Good. So some side things going on there. Basically, our main character is still very adept at learning how to be a leader, commander, so instead of just commanding 1, he commands all of them in a panic. So yeah, but he also anchors 2 of those people to fight by Crowley, just to keep him safe and good to go. So at this point, our main character realizes that something's going on, so then he starts slowing down. And again, the way I want him to kind of translate the Lich's emotion is similar to the werewolf. I don't want him to basically have a conversation. So instead, if I was, doing this through a narrative way, I think a better way to do it would be essentially that thing that I've been training you guys the whole time to hear, the Lich's 1,000 tiny whisper and voices. Essentially, the main character would hear that, and then the main character would respond. And that response would give you clarity to what those voices kind of translated to him. So essentially, at this point, he kind of takes stock of like, oh, okay, this thing just helped me, what's going on? And then he hears 1,000 voices, he kind of makes a confused face, and then another one of those ethereal bone hands pushes on the right side of his chest, pushing him to the left, changing his momentum. and then lo and behold, time quickens again, and one of the zombies lunges at him. So now that zombie is to the right of him, and then our main character speaks up as we go back into this slow-mo kind of time and says, wait, what do you mean slow down? And at this point, basically what's happening is there's like this bone ethereal hand is guiding him on how to do certain things. And at this point, I may even jump into the character's head as he's thinking to himself and basically explain what the fuck's going on. So essentially, the Lich King is saying, listen, you've done great thus far, but you're really shitting the bed when it comes to combat, because instead of all you're doing is basically waiting until you have this burst of speed to make sure you can get a kill, which is great, but it's not so great when you're blinded by your rage, when you're blinded by the enemy in front of you. You've been learning from the wolf, which is basically hell-bent on devouring whatever's in front of it, where you need to stop, you need to hold back. Your friend would have died if I didn't help you. So essentially, you're gonna have to start being more of a leader, more of a general, especially if you're going to be using my power. So then essentially he's telling him to like relax, stop turtling up, stop focusing so much, take in the entire battlefield. And again, I'll explain this in the next part, but I would love at this point for the if this was like a TV show or just a film thing, for this whole scene to be a single shot. So at this point, our main character, he grabs that zombie to his right's dagger and redirects it and plunges it into the bottom of his throat. And what I'm doing here is, again, I want to imply that the Lich is now teaching our main character that slow down. You have access to this ability to slow down time to a sense. This ultimate instinct that is given to you by the werewolf. Use it to understand and survey the battlefield so that you don't get killed, and you can take in everything you can. So at this point, our main character looks like he's moving slower, but then I would love for us to disconnect from our main character, and that's why I say I talk about like the one-shot take, if this was a TV show or a film or a music video or whatever. So now it deattaches from the main character and everything is moving in normal time. But our main character is kicking some ass. So again, he disarms one of them, stabs the rusty dagger that this undead was holding, and cracks him in the mouth with it. And at this point, he is just gliding through people, because again, the Lich is trying to teach him. And the one final thing after he's done dunking on the other two zombies in any way you'd want, there's one other thing that I want to kind of happen. Essentially, let's say he gets to the very end of his trail, and then the trail breaks right. But on that right path, he sees this giant, big undead wielding this giant battle axe. And it starts to approach him, and as he takes a deep breath, the camera punches in our main character, and his eyes kind of settle to this green for just a brief moment of time, as this undead is approaching. So this undead, of course, grabs his giant battle axe and goes to split Grim in half. Grim's eyes glow this ethereal green, and he says in that same deep guttural voice that is unlike his normal voice, "I am not so weak." And he grabs that battle axe just as it's about to embed in his face. And essentially what this is getting at is the Lich is saying that because I was sectioned to only your hands and parts of your feet, because again, I kind of want him to be a beat-em-up boxer kind of thing, because I was restricted to only these parts of you, you're basically indestructible in your hands and your feet. So these are primarily your weapons, and essentially I kind of hinted at as well, but gauntlets are going to be our main character's kind of tool of execution, basically filters for his power, which I think are going to be really cool, and is what the upcoming relics for him are going to kind of be. That's essentially what has happened. And I wanted to include one more thing, even though I'm not sure if I talk about it in the next part, but basically somewhere in this hellstorm of chaos going on all around our main character, I would love for him to basically use that chain as like an instinct, and it to wrap around one of the undead, and then that undead just kind of bursts with this green kindling bursting out of his eyes, almost as if he just got set on fire from the inside. And now that zombie, of course, is working on our side, killing his allies. But also another thing I wanted to imply on this is that as soon as our main character does that to that Joe Schmo zombie, that zombie gets faster, gets a little bit more smart, and a little bit more furious. Now the reason why I want to do that is because, again, even by undead necromancer kind of standards, our main character is pretty unique because he is also a living undead, so he kindles the soul of whatever was on his side, which is something we can play with way down the line. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna get back to my old self. I just wanted to not stumble through that, which a lot of that was, because again, putting things into words the first time is always a bit of a challenge, but putting it into the second time, way easier, because you've already basically found out your course, so you're just redoing it. But anyways, me in the past, take it away. And to me, the best way I could describe this way of fighting, is from a game series that I love to pieces, or a game that I love to pieces called Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I'm not sure if you guys ever played that game, but I have such brutal and lovely memories from that game of you were this just slender assassin that seemed like he was taught by every assassin that's ever lived, and like millennia of assassin that's learned and crafted their ability to kill for such a long time. That this character just glided through enemies, but had these momentary things of just visceral violence, of like this insane execution, of like how this enemy would jump at him, he would grab his sword, disarm his sword, and then just hammer fist his dual blades in Assassin's Creed into his neck, and then just quickly pivot to the left, and then this enemy would just get dropped them immediately. And it was just such a brutal way of fighting. It was one of my favorite mechanics in that game, where it was playing unarmed, so with just your bare hands. And you would basically pick up a weapon and just burn it on someone really quick. So you like eviscerate some person, you'd perfectly time this disarm, and then grab this giant battle axe and murder someone with it, and then embed it by just throwing it hard at another enemy with that weight of that battle axe basically impacting and then forcing the enemy to do a backflip, because just this visceral power. And to me, it was just like this beautiful dance of like such impossible skill and like understanding of combat, but then harmonized with this force of Berserker and like this insane power out of nowhere. And to me, that is very much what I want the main character to use, and that's basically coming up with all those things. How like Ezio used to quickly grab a weapon, burn it on someone, and then move on to the next target. But then he'd always pivot back to basically his dual blades or his just hands. And of course, our main character has his claws. So if you want to do some sort of dual blade straight up ripoff, we could just stab him with our fingertips. But to me, that's the kind of battle that I want to have happen. So again, just to give you guys a quick like overview of what's happening. I went through this slow methodical kind of executions with you guys, and if we were filming a TV show, I'd want it to pan as our main character just starts fighting a lot differently, and he's a lot more aware, and he's a lot more subtle, but then again, as he's just blitzing down these other two that are on the plane with him, this route, the last one, let's say he just does this horrible thing and like, I don't know, rips him in half or something brutal, just as like, and as he does it, his eyes glow orange a lot more. Guys, I think I have to end it. I have to exercise, which is where I do most of this thinking. Shitty. So right now, essentially, our main character has gotten that trait. Yeah, I feel like this is a good place to stop too. Yeah, because this was a lot. This was supposed to be this trial. And by the way, Crowley's still, well, let's save it to next time of how Crowley's handling this whole situation. Outside of being like seeing these 4 mummies just rip this person to shreds as he's reloading and like, oh shit, I could have got hit there. Thanks, bud. And then keeps progressing more and just shooting people with this double barrel. But yeah, we'll get to that at a certain point. But But I hope that's enough busy work for our main character for the moment. I still think like in the next part we may do some busy work with him acknowledging like his relic more, like the thing he got, because the thing he basically got, kind of a spoiler because we might as well talk about it, but basically it was a Lich King's weapon, which is why it has this horde and these endless horde almost of zombies coming to rip whoever has its face off, is because it requires the user to have the leader, that like as much as our character has the king, the Lich King prefix, that doesn't mean he has the ability to command and have enough resolve to truly mean that command. You know, when he was saying, go get him guys, fight him, blah, 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 he didn't mean it. He didn't actually want them to die. Whereas when he stood up on that podium and he felt that will to want to survive, to want to live, and these things are challenging that, saying that I'm going to kill you and I'm going to end you, that rivaled that spark in him, and he said something vicious, and of course he meant those undead mummies just eviscerate them, but not like too much. Again, it's still like they have a tremendous strength, but the zombies have a tremendous intent and resolve about just like making their way to the main character. Yeah, the gauntlet on his left hand will almost, that's how we're gonna kind of be doing it, by the way, is his left hand is his necromancer and his right hand is his werewolf. Both of them play off of gauntlets, basically these filters for his power. But yes, the left hand is going to be the summoning hand, so we'll get into like the specifics of what this actually is. So it's not just like, hey, so you unlocked mummy, go team. No, it's basically a commander's relic. Like same way a gun would be a weapon, this is a weapon for a mage or a summoner. So this is what that is, by the way. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to end it. Again, that was my idea for the Lich and why it wasn't really participating that much or really had much thoughts on it, because it is a Lich King. That was also why. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I would love to know what you guys think or have added or have changed within this story that I'm telling. Thank you so much, and goodbye.